Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Stop by Sherwin-Williams and get 30% off select paints and stains June 13th through the 23rd. It's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Refresh your home inside and out with colors that make every space feel brand new. From cozy interiors to stunning exteriors, we've got the perfect shade for your next project. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Stop right there. Yeah, you. If you like all things entertainment, current events, or Hollywood, then look no further. Creator to Creators, hosted by director Meosha Bean of Horror Noir, interviews filmmakers and creatives from around the world. Join in on the fun, guest celebrities, and informative information to have as a creator. Hit subscribe and stay connected to Creator to Creators.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators Today. Today, we have a special guest.
Bob Dougherty from Sensaround.
Sensaround. Yes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be invited. Very happy to participate. Thank you.
I always love going to the beginning, at the beginning of it all, like talk about a little bit about your childhood and like, what was that like growing up and how did you kind of find your way into the music world?
Well, as a kid, I had so many different interests and a lot of them were really outside of music. I went through a lot of phases, cultivated a lot of hobbies and took them very seriously. There was a time when I was into Taekwondo, boxing on the heavy bag in the garage, influenced, of course, by Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed.
Wow.
Of course, football, basketball, comedy, and music. Music, of course, came into it, but I think performing in general was the real lure for me. Yeah. And when I was a kid, I was interested in being behind a microphone and I was interested in being on a stage, but it wasn't what I'm focusing on now. Rather than singing and playing guitar, my first foray into performing actually was tied to rap. And when rap mainstream, and I was influenced by artists such as Run DMC and LL Cool J and Public Enemy, Slick Rick, all of the household names from that era. I enjoyed it. And I tended to write raps about everything. I would write raps about girls I had crushes on. I would write raps about subjects in class and get extra credit if I performed them at school. And also around that time, maybe even a little before that, actually, I was influenced heavily by what I consider was a vintage era of Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that he was at the pinnacle of his powers in the Thriller era, or early to mid 80s Victory Tour. And I saw Michael Jackson perform on the Victory Tour.
Wow.
And I was definitely seduced by the idea of being able to move like that on stage. And I committed myself to learning his moves. So that was definitely one of the things for which I was best known, I would say, in middle school and high school.
Love that.
But as far as singing is concerned, I wasn't doing much of it as a teenager other than singing in the church choir. And when I went off to college, my musical interest still lay in rap and Michael Jackson and some top 40 stuff. I had a lot of friends at the time who were into more 4-piece rock bands, like U2, for example. And even though I was familiar with U2, I wasn't really into it. And then that changed after a few years of my friends influencing me by playing their stuff all the time. But I went to see them in concert at Giant Stadium on the Zoo TV tour. And since I had already been familiar with them, seeing them in person and hearing the live performances out of those massive speakers and sharing the energy of the crowd, I don't know, 60,000 people or so.
Wow.
Lowe's knows how to set off your July 4th with savings. Right now, buy one, get one free on select one-coat coverage interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Plus, get 2 select 2 or 2.5 quart red, white, and blue annuals for just $10. Hurry, these July 4th deals won't last long. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/9. Selection varies by location. While supplies last, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for more details.
Just, it kicked my interest in rock music into a different gear. And a couple of years later, I picked up a guitar, and I wish I could say that I was super focused on it then as I am now, but I was really more of a dabbler. Back then, I really didn't have designs on a career in music. I was thinking of doing something a little bit more standard and workaday and conservative. But ultimately, the interest just got more and more passionate. I became more passionate about it. It was more of a keen interest as time wore on, and became a more serious hobby, to the point that I was performing at open mics in New York City. Nice. And I don't know, have you performed as a musician?
I don't. Well, my background is cinematography, so I have a film degree, and I've done music videos. I've shot music videos, worked with a lot of people, and a few actually I actually worked with Billy Idol on a music video some years ago. But yeah, I mean, it's a different world. I think music videos are completely different from movies. So now I just make mainly films, but I've never performed like as a music artist. So I'm sure that's a different world.
Well, I think so too. And I love Billy Idol, by the way. I love Rebel Yell, Eyes Without a Face. But what I was driving at is that you've been in contact with a lot of performers. Other people might have told you this too. But the first few times you get out there in front of people, especially if you're holding an instrument, it can be really intimidating. Because I'm not a classically trained guitarist. I learned some open chords, and then I eventually finally started to apply myself to learn bar chords, to get a little bit more sophisticated. But I didn't go to a music school. My background in guitar was basically from a couple of lessons, then guidance from internet postings, videos, as friends would help out. So I had some practice going into it, but not as much as others. And it can be really intimidating to get up there for the first few times in front of people and play and sing. Because I always used to think as a kid, oh, if you're going to hold a guitar in front of people, you better be good, because you're going to be good. And it's probably looking at it from too harsh of a lens, because people tend to be more forgiving than that I'm giving them credit for. But I was just so afraid of being bad. And in the early going, it was really rough. So in my education in this was really more by throwing myself to the wolves, as opposed to, having a course of study at an art school.
I actually find that better, to be quite honest. You're like firsthand. It's just a different type of, I don't know, just I think that's better than going to this art school and then everything's just you're being thrown into like the wolves, I guess, so to speak. But I mean,
I'll tell you why I'm really heartened to hear you say that, because I agree with you. And the reason I agree with you is because nowadays, I'm working with 3 other musicians, primarily the other band co-founder. So he and I are the chief songwriters. But the point is, he graduated from an extremely prestigious music school in Vienna, Austria. So his background is vast. I mean, his father was the director of the Vienna Boys Choir.
Wow.
So he music theory is as much a first language to him as English and German, because he grew up speaking both. But point is that he can think in music theory, and I'm much more raw, as you were intimating, because I just threw myself to the wolves without a music education. And I think that our collaborative process is probably stronger for the fact that it combines a raw element along with someone who's got a more polished approach. So I think what you said is very poignant. But those early open mics were hard, and oh my gosh, your palms sweat more than you ever would anticipate, and your hands tighten up, and you want to play the chord cleanly, but your nervous system is preventing you from doing it. So you're muffling strings. Sometimes your voice is cracking, and I must admit that this little music community, which was an open mic at Harrison's Tavern on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City, really good people.
Nice.
And we all became fast friends. And my goal, my mindset was don't be jealous, don't be envious of the people who are better than you. You use that as motivation. As I always thought that if you see or hear someone who is capable of doing something at a level you'd like to be doing it at, but you're not yet capable of doing it at, the healthiest approach, the healthiest mindset is just to set your sights on getting that good, putting in the work, aspiring to it. Unfortunately, a lot of people in life, they're given to the tenets of jealousy and bitterness and envy. So they would rather diminish people who might be able to do something they can't. I never subscribed to that. I always felt that it's about, raise your own game, elevate your own game.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, that's all we can do. And then you just, I guess in that you find your people, your tribe, the people that are going to be gravitated towards you and your music and your sound. Because you're like, there's no one can be you, you're uniquely you. And I think that's awesome. And there's space for everyone, I think, in this business.
Yeah. I tend to be very flattered when people have a hard time pinpointing who we sound like. And sometimes they come up with some artists, but in general, I take it as a compliment, because you really don't want to directly remind people of some other artists, because you want to have your own entity, your own identity, your own sound. And so I guess it's natural for people when they hear something for the first time to try and relate it to some other artist, just so they can categorize it. People like to do that. I love it when I have a hard time with that, because I would much prefer for Sensaround to be its own category.
I think so. I mean, when I was reading the bio and I was like, pop rock, oh, that's fun. And just like and I listened to the song, it's different. I think you're in your own, you have your own style. I mean, I haven't heard it quite like that. And it's I don't know, it's like a different, and it's like a feeling too. It's like you feel good after listening to it as well. It's really good music. I was just actually going to say, like, where did you guys like kind of marry the sounds and kind of come up with like, okay, this is what we want to sound like? Because it's not just you, it's like a group, and it's like, how do you kind of find that sound and like, this is what we're going to stick with? And
it's funny, because if you were to ask me who were the artists who influenced you and why, I would be able to point to people like Noel Gallagher, the chief songwriter of Oasis. I would be able to point to bands like REM and Pearl Jam and U2, but the thing is, I don't think we sound like them. But their artistry informs my songwriting. So when I sit down to write a demo, it's a pretty simple approach, a pretty honest approach. I'll strum chords on an acoustic guitar until I like the progression I come up with. And I'm not afraid to scrap something. And I don't think like a person who's well steeped in music theory, where they might be intellectualizing it, such as, all right, I definitely need to go from this minor chord. It needs to be a major chord here. This should be a dominant chord, I think. I need to throw in a suspension here. None of that occurs to me when I'm writing a song. I'll just play chords randomly until I hear something I like.
I like that.
And then I'll say, all right, that sounds like that could be a feasible verse. And then let's go for the pre-chorus. And here, let's build a chorus. Let's get a bridge. And once I'm finished with that, it'll be comprised of, major chords, minor chords, some suspensions, bar chords, open chords. But then I'll approach it from the lyric writing standpoint, and I'll take my time with that. I generally don't write a song for the sake of writing a song. I rarely think to myself, I really need to release something. It's not along those lines. It's more along the lines of, what is taking up the most space in my soul these days? What's
I
weighing
love
heavily
that.
on me? Yeah. And so I'll make that the theme. And then I'll just start with some scat lyrics where I just might sing something spontaneously, because I think that it fits the song, and I'll figure out a melody. But then when it comes to writing the actual lyrics, I have a process where I'll get the idea down on paper, and I'll admit that no, that doesn't sing very well. So even if that's the idea you want to get across, you need to change these words so they sing better. And so I have a really fun process where I use a bunch of resources. Like a lot of songwriters, I'll use a rhyming dictionary.
Nice.
Thesaurus is very important. Phrase dictionary is important too. But it's really not, it's not cheating to use these resources. It's just knowing how to take all these words and these phrases and then put them together so they tell a story that's honest, and that's timeless, and that it's phonically, sonically, I should say, it sings well.
Yeah.
And so I might go through 2 pages worth of revisions before I come up with one line that I think is fit for the song.
Wow. I love that. What an interesting process. I'm always curious of, like, what do you want, like, as an artist, what do you want listeners to, when they listen to your music, to kind of walk away with? What is your goal?
It's definitely, I want them to hear a melody that they want to hear again.
I see.
I want them to find it infectious. I want the words to be to make just as much of an impression as the arrangement, as the melody. I want them singing it in their heads, and more to the point, I want them to see their own story in it. So even if it's got something very personal to me, it can't be too personal. It has to be relatable. Yeah. So I feel very strongly about the art of writing something that's honest and personal, but it actually has to be universal. Other people need to be able to apply that to their lives, and I want them to remember, what they were going through or where they were when they heard it. I want it to serve as a score for their lives too.
I love that. And I think that's how you make a classic, and that's like timeless music, when it, like you said, it's like universal. Like you hear those songs from like way back when, and they play it and you're like, wow, it's just something still resonates to this day after so many years pass by. Like, it's pretty incredible how, like, artists can do that and touch people everywhere. So that's really cool.
Yes, it definitely should be the goal, Meosha. Absolutely. I don't think that songs that are topical date well at all. I don't think songs that incorporate new technology in the lyrics date well at all. So when I hear a song that alludes to or mentions DMs or texts, it just I can't help but cringe a little bit, because it reminds me of songs when they're referring to beepers. I mean, it dates the song too much.
Yeah.
When people write a song that's about the coronavirus, it just comes across as topical. It's not going to be relevant after a while, and it's more of a novelty that they're doing for immediate attention, rather than something that's going to be just as deep in 5 or 10 or 15 years. Hey, can I continue with the answer about the process? Because I don't want to cut my writing partner out of it.
Please.
I brought you up to the part where I come up with a demo, right? With guitar chords and lyrics.
Yeah.
Then I go to the studio with Alex Track. He's the co-founder of the band that who I was talking about earlier, the graduate from the prestigious music school in Vienna. And incidentally, he is a Grammy Award winner.
Awesome.
Which is a real advantage for me to be working with a Grammy Award winner. He recorded Ike Turner's last album of his life called Rising with the Blues, 2006. Love that.
Nice.
But I'll record the demo at the studio with Alex. I'll lay down the guitar first, then I'll sing. Then Alex will go back to it in a few days. He'll take the guitar out and just listen to the vocal, and he'll come up with chords that may match the ones I wrote, but they may very well improve on the chords I wrote, improve upon them. And he'll do some arranging. He'll take the bridge and say, this bridge is more effective as a chorus. Let's make the bridge the chorus, or make the chorus the bridge. This verse is good here. And he might change a little bit of the melody. He might just improve the end of the line. And what we'll do then is we'll bring in the other musicians. They'll play their parts, lay down the bass, the lead guitar. Once in a while, I'll play rhythm guitar on the track, but usually we leave all the guitar duties and recording to Nate Gignac, our lead guitar player. And we'll lay down the vocals, comp the vocals, do the harmonies, and we'll do a few remixes. And the goal is to make it so that you hear it and there's nothing you want to change. But I have fewer notes these days than I used to when Alex and I started, because our chemistry has gotten so strong that we have a certain style. I think he can probably read my mind. And so I have way fewer notes than I used to, and he'll listen to it. He doesn't even have to write anything down. He'll just hear something where he needs to lower it a dB, raise it a dB, add an intro, put some strings over the bridge. And ultimately, we found out that our chemistry as co-songwriters works great. There's no friction.
I love that. That's awesome. That's really cool. Do you feel like the music industry is changing for artists nowadays? Like, as far as like, I know I've been reading articles and you hear about artists that are not seeing their, I guess, incentive, the money, the things that they're putting in, they're not getting treated well by the certain studios or managers. Do you feel like it's changing though, now that we're like in this time and day and age?
Yeah, and I think I can even answer that as someone who doesn't have a vast background on the business itself. But I think it's kind of obvious that it has changed, because back in the 80s and 90s, you had all these record labels who were signing artists and they were recording them and promoting them. So the artists had a big budget behind them. They also had a team. So you're talking about songs that have gone through a lot of different phases, and a lot of different people are monitoring the process. Multiple songwriters, different producers. You've got record executives. So whereas nowadays you might take an artist who has recording software, and he or she will record themselves, and they don't have a bunch of other eyes and ears on the project. So you have fewer filters, and they can distribute their music easily by uploading it. So, back in the day, you had a select few out of the millions of aspiring musicians who were breaking through and getting attention. And nowadays, anybody can record, and the challenge is to get your music up to code and be able to distribute it properly and get the proper promotion. So I do think it's changed. I think that there is a preponderance these days of music where people don't have the benefit that I have, for example, by working with a Grammy Award winning engineer. And so you hear a lot of stuff that invariably you're not humming along to, and you're not in a rush to play it again. But there's just so much that keeping up with the music these days is like trying to capture a waterfall with just a couple of buckets.
Yeah. It's I commend you. It's a lot, I would think, because I mean, even as a filmmaker, I mean, I think it's still, it's a kind of the same thing for us. It's like to get our work out there and to be seen, because it's so saturated. I mean, there's so many movies, and just having, being that, like I said, I think what worked is like being honest and real with your stories, and not just doing it just for the topic. Like you said, like it's like, okay, yeah, it is that numbers game, but it's also then you feel like you're selling yourself short. Like, oh, but I want to really talk about this kind of subject. I'm very like much about like paving your own way and figuring out like stuff, because like, I mean, essentially that's what Tyler Perry did, and he has a studio. So I think it's a lot more work that way. But it's definitely worth it in the end, I think, for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, and you reminded me of something. In and in terms of have artists changed, has the industry changed? I think that these days far too many people are drawn to the spoils of celebrity and stardom. And I think that they go into it with that being the primary goal. Now, there's nothing really inherently wrong with that, because even the vintage artists in the 60s and 70s would tell
Yeah.
you that they got into it initially because they wanted to get their share of attention too, right? And I'm sure it would be fun to be a celebrity and rub elbows with a lot of high profile people at parties. But one thing that I think used to be the case more is that people were writing about timeless themes, timeless tenets. And if it caught on and they became famous, if they became notable in name, then celebrity would just be a byproduct of it. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of kids are getting into it simply because they want to be celebrities, and more to the point, they're writing about it. And
Yeah.
I don't think you can write about the medium and expect that to resonate with people. Meaning, don't write about being a celebrity. Don't write about, oh, I've got a show tonight at 8. I'm going to be on stage in front of a bunch of people at 8. It's just, again, too personal. Make it so it's more relatable. The same reason you probably wouldn't be keen to go to a movie, and instead of seeing a story play out on the screen in front of you, you're seeing characters talking about this movie we're making. So what do you think about this next scene we're doing? It's just
Yeah.
I don't think it can be too self-aware. It needs to be more, again, universal, relatable, timeless, a lot more artful.
Absolutely. I love that. And that makes me happy to hear that there are people like yourself that wants to tell like stories and being vulnerable and being real and honest, because I mean, I feel like the music world is so saturated, like you said, with just honestly a lot of, maybe it's just like the new generation, the generation now that's coming up. It's very popular, and it's really odd. And I'm just like, so it's refreshing to hear, your perspective and hear that there are artists that do care about the craft and really want to put great content out there. So thank you.
Thank you for appreciating that. It's always nice to talk to someone who has that same sensibility. And believe me, other songwriters don't have to listen to me, but my 2 cents is stop throwing in expletives into your pop songs. I know that curse words work well in hardcore rap. I know they work well in certain comedy and conversations when you want to put emphasis on a point, but when they're
Right.
casually thrown into the verse of a pop song, I'm just thinking, are you still going to be proud of that song in 15 years? Would you play that song in the living room for your
Right.
grandparents? Come on, we don't need the casual expletives.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to anybody that wants to get in the music industry? What does that look like?
Well, I'm flattered to be asked the question, since I'm
Yeah,
not a household name, but the fact that you're interested is something I take as a compliment.
of
Uh,
course.
I would say that the best approach would be to do it for the love of it, and then perform for whomever you can, without the expectation of becoming a household name, without the pressure to become a celebrity, because as we've acknowledged, that's incredibly difficult to do. And it might happen because, as they say, the cream rises to the top. But I think that if it gives you joy when you're doing it, then you're already playing with house money.
Yeah.
Flesh out your songs, make sure that they're as good as they can be, and then perform them for whatever audiences you can, and see where it goes. Because if people like it, then invariably it's going to catch on, and you're going to grow your audience, and that's what we're trying to do. So that's advice that I give to myself the same way I would give it to anyone else.
Love that. Fun question. Once your work is done and your journey's over and you get to the pearly gates of heaven and you meet God, and what would you like God to say about your work that you've done on earth?
I'd like God to tell me, I'm really proud of you for finally pursuing this. You got to it at a later stage in your life than most people do, but it was worth the wait. And your words ring true, and they move me, and they moved others. If you put smiles on people's faces, if you put joy in their hearts, if you put songs in their heads, then you made the world a better place.
Ah, I love that. That's beautiful. Anything that you have coming out in, like down the pipeline that you like to, share and shout out for for our listeners?
Well, yes, we have a couple of shows that we're about to do.
Yay.
One of them is at the Universal Bar and Grill, which is a pretty well-known music venue for the Valley here in Los Angeles. It's in Universal City, and we're playing there on
All right.
September 7th. And we're playing at the Mint in Mid-City, LA on September 22nd.
Nice.
So, and I must admit, I'm equally excited about the fact that we're finally figuring out our stage show in terms of what happens between songs. Because
Nice.
I'd always dreaded the idea of being obligated to speak between songs. A lot of the time, sometimes an artist is really good at that and can really engage the crowd and is funny and is also honest, and it just offers insight on the performer's personality. And Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters,
Yes.
he might be the best at that. I think that Bono from U2, he's very comfortable with it. Sometimes he's a little bit too political for my taste, but he definitely has said a lot of worthwhile things through the years in their shows. But a lot of times I think people are just speaking because they feel they're supposed to. And all too often it's a bit sanctimonious and self-indulgent, and it feels like the filler that it is. So I didn't want to do that. I'm proud of our stuff, but I also feel like I'm a modest guy.
Love
and
that.
I don't want to just be speaking for the sake of speaking. So because I have somewhat of a quirky personality too, in addition to writing songs that are serious, I wanted to be able to incorporate that into the show. And
Nice.
so come up with some bits between songs that offer a little bit of levity.
Nice.
And if you can make fun of yourself to a degree, I think that's always a good thing. So we have that. And on that subject, I was able to convince a friend of mine, maybe you know him, I hope you do. His name is Brennan. He's of the Jerky Boys, the famous prank call from the 90s.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
his
Okay.
characters like Frank Rizzo and Saul Rosenberg. And I don't know
Nice.
how many CDs they sold over the years, but it's a lot. He's a well-known entity, Johnny Brennan. And so I asked him if he would mind lending his voice to our stage show.
Awesome.
He said yes. So he did a couple of his characters with some dialogue that I scripted. And so
Awesome.
act as though I'm fielding a phone call live during the show. And then we're just going to exchange lines. Of course, his will be recorded and mine will be live. But it was
I
always
love that.
that was always a dream of mine to be incorporated into a Jerky Boys call.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Oh, where can people find you? Yes, on social media so they can follow all the things that you guys have coming out.
Oh, yes. Well, they can find us on our website, which is sensaroundmusic.com. And Sensaround is SENS around, no spaces, music, of course, .com, sensaroundmusic.com. We have our own YouTube channel. So you find us on YouTube. You find us on Instagram. We're called at Sensaround Band. Yeah.
Nice. Well, everyone go follow. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing these amazing gems and just your story. I had a really good time. It was really nice. It was fun.
And thank you so much for being the consummate hostess. I mean, you're terrific. Though this is an audio interview, you and I have the benefit of seeing each other on screen. And so it's very comforting to look into your sincere eyes and do the interview with such a professional who works in earnest as you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.